Good afternoon. Today is the 13th day of November 2016 in our continuing series of interviews with Aurovillians. And we're very happy to have Amy with us today.
Thank you.
Welcome, Amy. The first question we always ask everyone is, how did you hear of Mother and Sri Aurobindo? And then how did you hear of Auroville?
Well, to be honest, I learned of Auroville first,
Uh-huh.
and then I learned of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. I I arrived in India as a tourist and had my Lonely Planet guide and was looking for the next place to be. And right there in black and white was this international township near Pondicherry, and had never even heard of it before. And so I was in Mahabalipuram at the time, went on the internet, checked out the website, and saw the map of Auroville. And recognized immediately and felt, a strong resonance also immediately with the names of the communities.
Oh.
And the one that really struck me strongly was transformation, because that's a journey that I have been on since my first breath. I feel this transformation, and I saw surrender, and I saw courage, and I saw certitude, and I thought to myself, I have to go to this place. This is so cool, and it's international. We're in India, people from all over the world. So I arrived in Auroville first, and so in the Lonely Planet there was a little bit of mention of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, but there wasn't a recognition, let's say, at first. It was
How
really
old
the
were
place.
you at this time?
At that time I was 37.
And what was your education before that and your search before that?
Oh boy. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's do a bit of rewind.
We'll
Let's set the
rewind.
stage. Right. So, golly, I went to university in San Francisco, and I studied criminal justice, and I wanted to go into administration of justice for juveniles, and I had been conditionally accepted into a program, a master's program, to go into juvenile justice policy in San Jose, California, and life happened, and so I ended up not going into that program, and I ended up advancing in my career and working in a biotechnology company. So I had this background of having a pretty successful career in the biotechnology industry. I was in human resources. I wasn't a scientist or a researcher. I was working in our human resources. But so I got the BA at San Francisco State and worked in corporate America for many years. Really very hard work, very rewarding work, but it wasn't me. I could do it. I could actually do it quite well. But deep down, that wasn't it. So when I had been probably in my early 20s, I had started dabbling in religion and had some really wonderful experiences in Christianity and in community church, and learning how to be in community with people who weren't family, learning how to help and support and teach other people's children, those sorts of things in a religious context. Definitely, we were reading the Bible, we were doing Bible study, all of that, and that helped me a lot. That helped me because my first 20 years of life were kind of up and down and not so smooth, and so this stabilized me a bit. This exploration of Christianity and organized religion. And then in my late 20s, it kind of hit me over the head, almost literally, that it wasn't, it begged too many questions. Organized religion left so many unanswered questions. It was limited, it was limiting. And I just had this deep inner need that drove everybody else around me crazy to explore and to progress, to go and what's the next thing? There's more. So I got out of organized religion, which was a huge upheaval in my life, huge, because that was my support system. I was not so close to my family, the people who I had grown up with. So I was on my own. And it was terrifying, and it was wonderful. And I joined some reading groups because I'm an avid reader. I just, books, and I can't read enough. And I just read everything I could on every religion and spirituality and just occult and people from Siberia and people from China and just all over the planet, Peru. And my mind just expanded. And so at that time, so then this is kind of my early 30s, I found myself resonating best with Buddhism. That said, I still felt it was an organized religion. It is an organized religion. And I just felt that I needed to create my spirituality for myself that was just so deeply personal and just where there wasn't doubts. So I continued to search and I continued to explore and read and be open, and frankly, I feel a little bit funny saying this, but this is true. I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Mm-hmm. And that touched me because no one had talked about the moment the way that he talks about now. Just now. And I got very excited about that. So I felt as I was getting older, tripping through my 30s, exploring, having a good career, traveling, meeting people, being in Northern California, which is a pretty nice place to be, I have to admit. A rat race, but still a pretty nice place to be. I feel very, very blessed that I was born there and got to go to school there and lived there for quite some time. But so I was finding my wings. My wings were kind of slowly unfurling, while I was doing all of these explorations. And then life things happened again. It's just so, like everything turns upside down and you kind of go, oh my God, what's going on? And you're freaking out. But then it's an opportunity. It's like, here's an opportunity. Everything's upside down again. What do you want to do with this space? All of a sudden, there's this big space. What do you want to do with it? And at that point, I had enough courage and enough self-wisdom and self-knowledge to say, all right, I'm giving myself a year off of work. I'm packing up my personal possessions. I had a car, I had to sell the car, XYZ. And I gave myself a year to travel. And when I left, I wasn't planning to come to India. But I was in Europe. yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you want to keep this in this kind of a silly story, but this is how I ended up being in India. I was in Europe and I was trying to get to Australia, and I did not want to go to the United States. I was just so, I didn't want to be in the United States because Bush was president back then, and I just didn't want to be anywhere near where he was. And I couldn't find a way to get to Australia. It just wasn't, I don't know, the way I was doing my research, or I don't know what. And a friend of mine just said, well, why don't you go to India? And I was supposed to come to India in 1997 with a girlfriend, and that fell through. And in retrospect, I wasn't ready for India in 1997, so it's probably good that I didn't come here then. So this was 2004, and this friend of mine said, why don't you go to India? And I said, oh, I would love to go to India. I was just like, oh, it was like a dream to come to India. But I was frankly afraid to come by myself, to be a single woman traveling in India. I had traveled alone in lots of places in the world, but I didn't know, and I felt concerned about that. And this friend encouraged me and said, no, I have women friends who travel to India on their own and are fine, and you're a strong, smart, resourceful person. Go for it. And he really challenged me because he could see when we were talking about India that I really, really wanted to be here and really wanted to come and smell it and hear it and feel it and be in it. Because I just knew it was going to be this strange soup. And so I did it. I bought a ticket and I came. And that's when I arrived in Mumbai, and then I was in Bangalore for a few days, and then I was in Mahabalipuram, and I had my Lonely Planet. And I saw this international community called Auroville.
And you're still holding all these unanswered questions.
Of course.
Yes. Yes.
Of course.
Nothing had resolved itself.
Gosh, life would be boring if the questions got all answered.
Not all, but some. So you came here from Mahabalipuram.
I did, and I stayed in transformation, and I never left.
I see.
The only reason I left was to go get my visa. Yeah. It was. I can't say that it was immediately love at first sight or anything like that. Gosh, what was it? It was a cat. Seriously. Mm-hmm. I was getting ready to leave, and for the first time in my entire life, and I'm a total animal lover, I was confronted with observing a person about to harm an animal. I'd never seen that before. And this person had a kitten, and I intervened very dramatically and very quickly and decisively. And then I had a cat, and I had my backpack ready to go. I was going to get on a bus and go down south to Kanyakumari or somewhere and just continue my travels. But then I had this cat. And then I got in contact with some people in Auroville because I was trying to find something to do with this cat because you can't really travel around with a kitten. And then I started meeting more people in Auroville and making connections and yeah. Do you remember Animal Care Anne? The lady who was from New Zealand who used to care for the dogs in the village in Kolapalayam and Idian
I remember vaguely. I knew Deetra more.
Okay.
Claire.
Okay.
Deetra.
Yeah.
Because she took in everything.
Did she? She took in the animals.
She took in the great owls and.
She's an American.
In certitude.
Yes,
she's an American.
I've heard about her.
Oh,
people have said
wonderful.
That I would love her, but I never did meet her.
She had a Brahmini kite. His name was Akhenaten.
She had
and
a kite?
Akhenaten, his wing was shot and she healed it. Oh. And he used to fly through Auroville. And his favorite place was the Matrimondia nursery and the children's gardening class every Wednesday.
Wow.
Shally was that high.
Wow.
And he would fly over these children's heads, snatch Shally's cap from her head, fly up into a tree and drop it down and laugh. and the kids loved him. And Neil Oro
Wow.
was the first 5-year-old to graft a plumeria.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, Deetra
Yeah.
was wonderful.
Well, so I don't
So
know if you
Anne-
ever had the opportunity to speak with Anne, but she
No.
also was wonderful. She didn't take animals in; she cared for them in the village. And this. So I got into contact with her, and she
because
had-
of the kitten. Or
Well, yeah, but she told me very quickly that she was helping with the dogs and not with cats. But when I met her, there was kind of an instant karma with her. It was this very distinctive connection that I had with her. And yeah, so I stayed to help her with some things that she was trying to get up and running. And yeah, and then I met people and I saw more of what Auroville was about. And yeah, I decided to stay. And so I went back and got my visa. And so, I mean, I've been here since 2004. So 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah. So then, of course, being in Auroville, you start to hear about Aurobindo and the mother. And it was, I have to be honest, at first it was a bit, I felt myself resisting any kind of, anything that started to look like, people were worshiping or, quoting. That was my initial response because of my experience with organized religion.
Right.
And at that point, I had rejected organized religion. It was, in some things, we really struggle a long time with kind of black and white. Learning how to synthesize things is, I think, a lifelong journey. So at that time, I was still wary. So I cautiously approached Aurobindo first, and through Satprem, and then through Aurobindo's work, and then in parallel also the agenda and some of the works and some of the compilations. There's so many wonderful compilations of things that the mother shared. So slowly, I started to have my own experience, my own sense of who these people were and what their philosophy was and what their offer was to humanity as a whole. And it definitely made sense with everything that was happening in Auroville as far as the ideals go, that those things really flow together. So for me, being in Auroville and being in contact in my way, which is not like anybody else, surely, with Aurobindo and the mother, it's very natural. It flows. It's challenging. The yoga is very challenging. But it's my kind of challenge. I was talking to a friend who's in California just yesterday on Skype, and I said, I don't miss that scene at all. It's crazy there. I'm sure it's just as crazy, if not crazier, as it was when I left. And Auroville, in my experience, is crazy also. It's an undivine anarchy, in my experience. It's very chaotic and mind-blowing sometimes, but it's my kind of crazy. It really is. It's this raw, alive, you never know what's coming next kind of crazy, but we're in it all together, which works for me.
Could you tell us a little bit about your remembrances with Satprem?
I don't have any remembrances with Satprem.
You said you came...
Well,
just
through
reading.
his writing.
Through his writing.
Yeah, only through his writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would have been Sure, I would have loved to have met the guy.
Yeah, okay.
Very interesting, very
That's
interesting
right.
to read some of his stuff, especially in the agenda.
Yes,
And
yes.
loved his work, but no, I never met him.
The Adventure of Consciousness,
Sure,
special to you, as to many Westerners.
sure. Yep, the introduction. Yep,
The introduction.
yep.
Yes.
Really very
yes.
powerful, very
Yes,
powerful,
yes.
very touching.
So, did you meet many ashram people in your time in Auroville? Ashramites?
You know, I have had the distinct pleasure of working with people from the ashram when I was working in Machamandir Gardens. When I was still a newcomer, I was involved with, as you may recall, with planting grass in the garden and making sure that the newly installed irrigation system was properly watering. That was, oh boy, that seems like a long time ago. Yeah, so I got through that. But anyway, so every Sunday, the busload of happy
Oh,
and
yes.
enthusiastic ashramites would come. And yeah, wow, that was a very special time for me. And also because I was new to all of this. When I arrived in India, I didn't even know what an ashram was. Somebody used that term to me, and I didn't know what they were talking about, frankly. So obviously now I know what that means and what that is. But the people that I met working in the Machamandir Gardens, I see from time to time over the years here and there when we remember each other and how are you? And it's always warm and sweet. And there have been a few other occasions where there'll be an event and there'll be ashramites in Auroville. I don't come to the ashram for events so much because I don't really get out of Auroville so much. I'm not keen on driving down to Pondy on my bike. So it's mostly when there's things happening in Auroville that I get to reconnect. And it's, for me, it's been lovely. It's been good and uplifting, and there's just this connection. There's, for me, a very flowing connection. So.
And tell us a bit about your work in Auroville.
Let me take
Maybe
a drink
from the
first.
beginning.
Okay, you want a history and then, okay.
Sure. You see, people are thirsting for knowledge about Auroville. They want to know about Mother and Sri Aurobindo. They want to know about Auroville.
Yeah.
And this opportunity through the videos, now approaching 250,
Wow, that many?
is getting out to the world. And I
Okay.
get so many beautiful letters of how someone has touched me by what they said or their own experience. So it's very special that we have you here today also.
Thank you. I didn't realize that, that there was, you were so far along in all of this. Wow, that's, wow. Okay, so work. So karma yoga, huh?
Oh, yes.
It's, yeah, if you really try to manifest that, it's that, I mean, I'm sure I don't even fully even know what that means, really. Like, really, I'm not a yogi or anything. Very kind of normal human being, aspiring human being, if I may. So karma yoga, a work for, not for me, not for what I want, not for what I think is right, not for what somebody has told me, we want you to do this, we expect you to do this. Work, so this is the overview, and then I can tell you a bit more about just what I've done. Because it's really how you do it. It's your attitude, it's your constant surrender, it's your checking in with your motivation. Am I getting an ego kick off of something that I'm doing right now? I'm having a a discourse with a fellow Aurovillian, and is this about something that's fundamental and deeply meaningful for me, or is it that I want to be right? You know, these sorts of things, huh? This offering, this.
It's the word, isn't it? This offering.
Oh, and it has transformed, seriously, transformed my life, because we spend most of our time working. Really, most people spend most of their time working, doing a job. I mean, even if you're an artist, even if you're creating canvases, that's work. You know, it's not like sitting at a computer and writing programs, but you're creating, you're spending this time making something and being involved with material, and you're a person, and you have a heart, and you have a soul, and you have a mind, and all this stuff is going on all at the same time, and you're spending a lot of time doing that. Most of us. There are people on the planet who get to spend a lot more time being silent, meditating, or something like that, but most of us have to work. So I'm finding that karma yoga, the way that I understand it, the way that I aspire to manifest that, has transformed my life. I've always loved to work. Working has always had a lot of meaning for me. I like to collaborate. I like to share information. I like to be supportive. I like to be supported. I like that exchange. I like being in a team and doing things together. But I've experienced being here and working compared to when I worked in corporate America that had a hierarchy, and I was someone's boss and somebody was my boss and there was the CEO and That constellation was very different than the kinds of constellations that we have in Auroville. And it's that much more meaningful to me to be working in an environment that a lot of the people there's some part of them that consciously or unconsciously, because everybody's at different levels, right? There's this karma yoga thing going on. How much of my personality is in this? How much am I inserting my will? How much am I observing myself and stepping back from what's happening and the output, and what are my expectations? And I mean, it's this amazing freedom and liberation to explore this soul, this body's spiritual experience now through what I love to do every day, and working and interacting with people and creating things together. Wow, I'm actually getting chills. I mean, really, this is the karma yoga is perfect for me. I mean, I'm so glad that's something that's fundamental for the life in Auroville, this karma yoga.
For the yoga.
So, huh?
And for the yoga.
Yes, absolutely.
Work is the body's best prayer to the divine.
Oh,
She said.
yeah.
Yeah.
It really, it's not always. I mean, wow, yeah, boy. Anyway, we're definitely human. Definitely human. Definitely aspiring, but definitely human. So yes, the very first work that I did was with animals, with dogs, with Anne, and going around to the villages and helping people to get the dogs with their rabies vaccinations and sterilizations and things along this line. That happened for about the first year. And if I'm remembering correctly, the next place that I was offering my service in Auroville was in Metro Mandir, and that's when I met you.
Yeah.
And was working in the gardens, and wow,
The connection with nature.
it was being at Metro Mandir every day. Yeah, with the soil and the earth, and it was a beautiful way for me to start my work in Auroville. It was just so beautiful. Between the animal care and the being in Metro Mandir, it was perfect, really. And then, because I tend to like variety, I like to have several things going at once, I started working in future school. So I was working in the gardens with you, remotely, because I think you were in the United States most of the time then, and we were Skyping or calling, I don't remember now. And then I was working in future school in the library, and then in the office with Shelley. So I thought that was pretty wonderful, because Shelley is Nared's daughter. I don't know if everybody knows that, but yeah.
And she's a dear friend of yours.
And she is my dearest friend.
She
is my dearest friend, yes. So that's where we met, and it's, yeah, the rest is history, as they say. She's a lovely lady. You guys probably have heard from her already. Right. So I like to write. I love language. I mentioned already that I read voraciously. So working in the library, at the high school, with the young people, helping them find books and making sure that the books were being well cared for, and then starting to work in the office and helping to just do office stuff, and supporting the team and supporting the teachers. And it was great. So between the gardens, because by that time the animal care had changed, Anne passed away, and someone else came in and took over, and I wasn't involved, and that was fine. So then it was Metro Mandir and Future School. Boy, and then, if I'm remembering correctly, you may have heard from somebody along the line of Portus Distribution Center. It's kind of like a cooperative. It's a food distribution where people participate and create a collective resource of food and other basic needs. That's located behind the Solar Kitchen. So that opened in March of 2006, and I was there when it opened. I wasn't involved with the idea and with getting the funding and getting the building. I wasn't involved in any of that.
Was Gilles involved with that at the time?
Gilles was not. It was Jocelyn. Jocelyn B. and Nicole, and probably Isha, from who's now with Prosperity, and Isha, Service Link. I don't know how else to describe Isha, American Isha. I'm trying to think of who. Gosh, my brain is... So, Portus Distribution Center, I was there at the beginning, so it was new. We opened the doors, and there was products, and there was people, and we figured out how to make it work, and how people could keep track of what they were using from the stock, and just seeing how products were used or not used, and things that needed to be added and things that didn't need to be there because people weren't taking them, all that kind of thing. It was the cooperative. And in that place, I got to meet so many people. It was great because in the gardens, I met some people who were involved with the gardens and involved with Metro Mandir because it was still under construction at that time. So there was that group of people. And at the school, it was the students and the teachers, and that was it. But at this Portus distribution, you had this, just this wide range of Aurovillians and newcomers signing up, saying, I want to be part of this cooperative. And so I just immediately started meeting all these people and talking and listening and connecting, and it was new. It was we hadn't done something like this. Well, since Portus and Aspiration had been started in 1972 or something. I don't know when Portus Aspiration started. So it was exciting, and I felt a lot of responsibility to hold the intention, and I did that for about a year, and then I stopped doing that. And if I remember correctly, after that, then I went, and again, I like variety, so this is one of my things, and I like to test my limits. Okay, so all right, we set that up. That's running smoothly. I hand that over to somebody else who wants to try it. I, if I'm remembering correctly, went to housing service. Housing
must have
service
been a
in
challenge.
Auroville.
Wow.
And I also, and I don't really remember why I did this, but instead of working at Future School, I switched to IKEM School, which is one of our outreach schools. All of the students there, it's creche through 8th, are from Kulapalayam and Bomapalayam and Idian Chavity from the village. It's all the children who are living in the local villages. But it's an Auroville school. It's under Sire. And the principal there, his name is Shankar. He's a lovely man. If you haven't talked to Shankar, I recommend you talk to Shankar. Good. He's a lovely man.
And I wanted to ask you also if you could give us other recommendations.
Yeah, that's definitely one. I definitely highly recommend you speak with Shankar. He's a beautiful soul. So I was supporting him in the office and around for a while also. So there was housing and IKIM school. Yeah, boy, I don't know. God, I could go on and on about the housing. Housing was... So I come from a professional corporate background. California is pretty liberal. It's not the Midwest or anything. It's pretty liberal. But when you're working, you're professional. You even if you're upset or you kind of keep your emotions back. That's what I was used to. But living and working and breathing and driving and everything in Auroville, everything's there, everything alive, everything's immediate. So I went from food, which I saw some people kind of lose it about the food, get very emotional and hurt, and their security was upset because some food was not available or some such thing. Their special order didn't come in. And that was surprising for me. I was taken aback by that. And I got that even more in the housing. So I was confronted with that, which was good. It was good for me. It was good for my personal growth. It was, it helped me to see how I respond, when another person is being emotional towards me, in a way that's confrontational or aggressive. Because with housing, again, it's one of those, it's fundamental, it's clothing, it's food, it's shelter, so people sometimes had this perception that they would come to Auroville and they would be provided housing. And some of the people that came to the housing service, and I was sitting at a desk and I was wanting to be helpful and give information and give support, and that's just who I am as a person. And there I was, that was what I was supposed to be doing for Aurovillians and newcomers. They expected me to give them a house. And Very soon I felt, because I had done some social work back while I was in university, and I felt like I was a social worker. I really felt like I was having to talk people through their their own personal journey, their own personal, because they would get so anxious about where a house or a house sitting, or when's that house going to be finished that I've signed up for a project, and the architect said it was going to be done 3 months ago, but now it's not. And we were the housing service, the liaison sometimes between someone who had some kind of control over housing and the person who wanted that housing. We would be in between. So wow, I that job was hard. That job
Quite
was
a
really
learning
hard.
experience.
It was quite a learning experience. Again, I got into contact with so many people that way. Yeah.
Why don't we take a little break here
Okay.
for a few minutes,
Okay.
and then we'll carry on with part two.
Good.
I'm